Hey guys, Nick coming to you with another video on Infinity Kingdom. This one will be the next episode of our skill tier list when it comes to the Tower of Knowledge. Skills, we will be covering the bundles skill. What I mean by bundles is the 10 skills that are only available from this recharge gift event. So basically you need to get 60 of those boxes and you're going to have access to one of those 60 of the 10 skills. Of course, you can get those bundles multiple times, can get all of them if you want to. We're going to look at it as a more lower spender perspective. What if you can get one or two, maybe three of those skills? We will also include the Corrosive Power skill because at the end of the day, we have not touched this skill yet, and it is a pay-to-win skill. It is actually one of the hardest skill to get in the game. You need to play this Wisdom Well event, you need to get lucky, and you need to get this chest here 60 times to then be able to unlock Corrosive Power. So we're going to put it in the same list. Let's get started right away with the list. As you can see, I already placed each of the skills in the tier I think they belong to. But again, here you have to be careful. These skills are very niche as a whole towards specific team, specific setup. So make sure even though some of the skills are ranked higher, they fit into your team before you get them. So let's get started with Lightning Strike. The reason I put Lightning Strike quite low as one of the worst skill to get, if not the worst in this list, in the C tier, is very simple. It's not the best when it comes to damage, but it is a pure damage skill. When you look at this skill here, the only utility that you get is the damage increase taken to the enemy, but at 10% is so low that it's not, you can't really consider it as a utility skill, it's more as a damage skill. But because there is a little bit of utility into the kit, the damage is not high enough to be considered as a pure damage skill either. So because of that, because it's a low damage skill in my opinion, and the 50% increase that you get from being the enemy being wounded on a 300% is not too high. It's pretty low overall. I don't think the damage output is good enough to be any higher in the tier list. Then you have Soul Synergy. Soul Synergy as a whole is actually quite an intrinsic skill. It's quite a decent skill, but the main reason why you probably don't want to get it, especially as a low spender, is because the skill only brings healing to the table. That's the only thing it does. But if you are a low spender, you will be fighting a lot of Alex with Quinn or Can marches. That means they will have a lot of anti-healing on their team. That means you will be mainly fighting against marches that will cancel healing. So if you get one or two skill in that bundle and you go for a exclusively healing skill, your skill will be counter most of the time. That is why I don't think it's one of the options you want to go for. And I left it into the B tier. Then you have Master Aegis. A little bit similar when it comes to reasons. First, this skill is not flexible. The enemy has to be magical damage for you to get any value out of the skills. That means it becomes a skill that you put on your team that you have to swap out. Anytime you're fighting an Alex or a Cat March, this skill will bring you no value at all, and you will lose a skill slot. It's useless if you're fighting physical damage team. And because it only affects the enemy team, not your team, that means you cannot leave it on your team, like I mentioned. There are other skills that you can do that, which is why this skills is going to be left in the B tier. Plus, on top of that, chances are a lot of the low spender are going to be physical damage. Most of the player that are not going to be physical damage are going to be Wu and Himiko. Himiko, they're probably stronger player with probably a few other skills, probably red skills. Um, but if you're playing against a fire team, you would get some value out of it. But the chances are that you're fighting a lot more physical damage teams. So this skill again, less flexible, less useful for you as a low spender. So I wouldn't get it. Then you have the next one in Chaos Storm. Chaos Storm is, in my opinion, more of a utility skill than a damage skill. It's a little bit unique as well in the sense that you actually deal the same amount of damage when it comes to physical and magical. It also decreases the physical and magical defense of the enemy, but only at 10%. And like we said earlier, 10% is not a whole lot. So this skill is not a damage skill, is a little bit of a utility skill, and is very niche in the sense that you would need this skill to be on a team that has, example, Alex and Emiko, or Ippo and Wu. So you need both set of damage to get the max value of the skill. And because that is not really the meta at the moment, and because the damage is rather low in general, and the usefulness, the utility of the skill is also very low, it becomes a very niche skill. I'm not a fan of it. I think it's still decent on a fire team with Wu and Hippo, but I'm leaving it in the B tier. Then you have the A tier. I think most of the skill in the A tier are all about the same level, and we'll get started with Blade Dodge. Blade Dodge, I think, is a very decent skill for two reasons. First, you get a very, very high damage dealt receive for the first 20 seconds of the battle. Even though it reduces your damage dealt, the damage reduction is so good that at 70%, you are going to be able to survive the burst of the enemy for that duration for sure. And then as this goes away and you start going up in power, you get more and more and more power. You get more and more damage increase as the battle goes. And that makes it a skill that, unlike battle stance or demonic contract, especially demonic contract, where you only have downside at the start and then plus and pros as the time goes on, this skill actually bring a lot of value at the start as well, which is why it is a skill that I really value highly. I think it's one of the best skills to get in that bundle. But again, I think it really depends on your marches, and this will definitely work only on a team that is physical. So you wouldn't be able to put it on a magical team. But still, I think it's a very good skill. Then you have Art of Arcana. Art of Arcana, I think, is a very, very good skill for any players that have a magical carry team. Why? Because unlike a skill like Master Aegis, where it only affects the enemy team, this skill is only going to affect your team. So if you have a magical damage dealer on your side, you have this aura in Art of Arcana, you get the value out of this skill no matter what the enemy brings to the table. This is why this skill is a lot more flexible in the sense that even though it's only magical damage, as long as you know you're going to bring magical damage, this skill will give you value. Two, the increase is 35%, which is really good. If you compare it to a skill like, again, Master Aegis, it only reduced the magical damage taken of your team by 25%. So 25% is lower than 35%. And on top of that, this one, you don't know if the enemy is going to be magical or physical damage. You, you have to swap it out if that's not the case. Whereas Art of Arcana, It doesn't matter what the enemy brings to the table. It does not affect the usefulness of the skill because you know you're going to be bringing magical damage. This is why the skill is a lot better, in my opinion, than Master Aegis if you know you're going to be dealing magic damage. Master Aegis, for me, is a very niche and needs to be put on and put out depending on the enemy. Then you're going to have, we're going to skip this one here. We're going to go to Bloody Frenzy. So Blood Frenzy, here we have a very, very good skill when it comes to physical damage again. I think this skill is about even to Blade Dodge when it comes to power. The reason why I put it in the A tier as well, again, the skill in the A tier, even though one is on the far left, the other one is at the far right, I think are all about even. There's not really any better skill in that regard in the A tier. But the reason why I do believe it's a A tier, this one doesn't bring any defense, but the damage increase is very good at 60% because it's stacked 3 times. But the rate at which you can get this full value is very quick. If you have an immortal that casts their ultimate more than 4 times at once, or that casts their ultimate very quickly, you get the full value of this damage increase almost from the start. As soon as you meet that requirement, you get that damage increase and you're going to keep that damage increase. That is why this skill is extremely good. It's because of how quick you can get the full value of it. So that is why I put it in the A tier. A little bit in the same perspective, the last skill on the A tier is Psionic Tide. I think it's a little bit like Art of Arcana. As soon as you're a magical damage team, this skill becomes the best in slot damage skill on the gold tier. Um, Again, they are better skill in the red tier, of course. And that's also the reason why it's not S tier, even though it's, in my opinion, the best gold magical damage tier skill. It's not S tier because it does not work with energy mastery. Again, if you're not planning on getting energy mastery at all, this is probably your best option if you're a magical damage team. If you're running Himiko, Wu, Loki, this would be the best option. But if you're not, if you are going to get energy mastery, then this skill would become useless unless you have a second mage somewhere else in some of your other marches. And I don't think as a low spender or a mid spender, you should get some of those bundle skill for your second team. You should focus on your main team. And because of that, I think Psionic Tide, while the best option in the gold tier, you cannot use the best red skill with it. So that is why, synergy wise, I am leaving it in the A tier. Then you have a 3S skill tier. Skill. First, let's start with Iron Curtain. This can be definitely debatable. A lot of player tells me it's an amazing skills. A lot of player tells me it's not that great. The reason why I really think it's S tier, at least A tier plus, is has a lot to do with the first part of the skill. So when I look at the first part of the skill, the damage reduction is actually really good at 35%, even though you only keep it for as long as your team is above 70%. A lot of the team are bursty. A lot of the current meta is about bursting the enemy quickly. And because the skill prevent that from happening on the immortal that has that, I think this is why the skill is this tier. It brings a very good defense option to an immortal from the start of the game. Then you also bring value in utility. There's only 2 ways at the moment to weaken barriers. The first one is from a Chaos Immortal. The second one is from the skill. This is quite unique when it comes to a skill effect. This is why I think it's S tier. And also, the other thing that I think is a good reason is because you're able to transform an immortal like Alex or Hannibal, mainly Alex, into something more than a damage dealer. You're able to transform your Alex into a utility based immortal. Basically, instead of bringing two tanks, you can bring a tank and this immortal, Alex, and have a back row focusing on damage. And the reason I put it so high in this list is because, as I mentioned earlier, I'm focusing on the lower spender and mid spender category, right? And as a low spender, most likely your Alex is going to be in a really good spot. If you want to, example, change your formation to double tank, chances are one of your tank is not going to be as strong as your Alex because chances are whenever you see Alex in the market and you're going to see it a lot, you're going to buy him. You're going to buy his fragment. So his specialization is probably higher. His dust level could be higher because maybe you've been using it using Alex all along. So if your Alex is a really good spot, but you want to go for a double tank, instead you can use a tank and keep your Alex and turn your Alex into something more than just a damage dealer with a skill like Iron Curtain and a few other skills. So that is why I think this skill becomes maybe the skill itself is not as flexible, but it allow an immortal Alex to become flexible. This is why I left it in the S tier. I really like what you can do with the skill. Then you have Time to Shine. Now, in my opinion, when it comes to raw power for an archer, Time to Shine is one of the best option. Um, one of the best. There is one better skill. We'll talk about it soon, and there is one a better skill when it comes to the red skills. But in the gold category, a little bit like Psionic Tide was to Magic Dealer, I think Time to Shine is the best physical archer position damage dealing skill. Why? Because currently a lot of the archer also focus not only on damage, of course, but on crit. A lot of them have crit artifact and rely on some crit to deal a lot of burst damage. This skill is a passive. As soon as you put it on your archer, you get from the start of the match the stats at its max value, which is 35 30. 35 crit rate, 30 physical damage. Very good. Both are very good for Archer. So that is why I left it in the S tier because, in my opinion, if you're not going for a red skill and you have an Archer, you need Time to Shine. It is the best skill for you to get in that bundle. Now, the last one is going to be Corrosive Power. Now, Corrosive Power, in my opinion, is the best skill in the game when it comes to anything other than red skill. Uh, all other classes alike, I think Corrosive Power is extremely, extremely good. Now, it is also the hardest skill to get in the game, which makes sense. Um, but let's look at the skill first, and then we'll talk about how to get it. So when you look at Corrosive Power, let me just lower it a little bit. So when you look at Corrosive Power, there's two reasons why this skill is amazing. First, the damage increase is super high, 60%. We looked at Time to Shine and I said it was one of the best raw power damage skill for physical damage. Well, Corrosive Power actually double at 60% the ultimate skill damage of the Immortal. Again, if you're playing, and not only that, this is physical and magical. So if you're playing a back row like Archer or Mage like Kimiko, Khan, Apollo, Wu, what happens is Corrosive Power is going to give you almost the full value that you want because you're not going to be dealing a lot of normal attack damage, a little bit more with Archer, but a lot of their damage goes from their ultimate, from their skill damage. So this is going to boost their skill damage by 60%, which is really high. And not only that, you can get this to the 60% very, very quickly because the way you get to it is by only casting 3 ultimate. A lot of the older skill needs to be cast more than 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 times to get the full value of that skill, which is going to be even less damage increase than this one. So damage increase really high. You get to the full value very quickly. And on top of that, you get 200 energy regen from the first ultimate. So energy is really important. It allows you to keep going off with your ultimate. Again, those immortal, most of the damage is from the ultimate, but this skill only brings plus to the battle. It's really, really good. It's definitely the only skill you should go for if you ever get to, whoops, if you ever get to get 60 of these boxes where corrosive power is available, you definitely need to go for corrosive power. These 4 skills are from the bundles. Buy them from the bundles, way less expensive that way. These 3 skills are from the KVK. Get them from the KVK. Free to play have access to this skill. No free to play will have access to corrosive power, and it's one, if not the best skill. In my opinion, it is the best gold skill in the game. So this was it for the bundle tier when it comes to the skills. I hope you enjoyed the video. I know these skills can be debatable on the tier list. If you have any comments, feedback, feel free to send it in the YouTube comments or let me know in game. Always happy to read and see feedback. The next video is going to be on the red skill, so stay tuned. And thank you for watching. Have a good day.